All right, so when you start 3ds Max, there's a couple of things that are interesting. One of them, make sure you start the English version. And then if you looked in the help system, there's a whole bunch of information like getting started. There's more than one way to get to this. Another one within 3ds Max is under the same option of help. You can go to the welcome screen. And on this last marble here, I'd call it, you can get into the 1-minute startup movies. So I've also got these linked in chat as well as in our Google Classroom. And these ones here that I'm kind of highlighting are ones that will help you a lot on how to basically navigate when you're seeing. You don't need to do them all. And even though they're called 1-minute movies, they're very condensed. They basically, how much can we fit in 1 minute? Not how much can somebody absorb in 1 minute, in my opinion. So you'll want to watch them more than once, I'm sure. It's just how that goes. So when you're in 3ds Max and you've gone through a couple of like tutorials, I think you're going to find that there is an advantage to repeating these tutorials again, because over time you're going to learn more, and the words that they used at the beginning that might have meant nothing will actually mean something as you go through it the next time. All right, so this over here on the right is called a create panel. I'll move my head over there. So just to my side here is a create panel. The plus button means to create, and this circle means using primitives. And over here we've got something called a sphere. So to create a sphere, there's a couple different things you can do. I'm going to work in this main viewport down here that's a lot like a Mudbox viewport. I'm going to start out with it just the way it is for a minute. I'm going to click near the middle and hold my mouse button and drag up to just basically build a sphere or a ball. And when I let go of the mouse button, it's now an object that's got a name called Spear001, which is just above my head here. This is going to be my snowperson base. So what I want to do is rename it before I move on. I just need to click in here a second time. I'm going to abbreviate SP-8. Make sure I know what it is. And the color green is fine, but I can actually click on this color swatch right here. I should move my head over where I found it. And I can change it to a different color snowperson. There's kind of an off-white color right there, kind of a grayish color. That's fine. And what I want to do now is basically show you that you can see it in multiple viewports. It kind of looks like the Death Star in some of these viewports. And with a sphere, it doesn't look that different in different viewports. So I'm going to temporarily grab a teapot. And it doesn't make any sense in the world to put a teapot in my scene other than to demonstrate to you that there is a definite viewport that shows a top. So my head's over here by top. There's a left viewport. There's a front viewport. And there's a perspective viewport. So these viewports can be changed by clicking on the word front, and you can change them if you want to look at the bottom, for example. And the other thing to be aware of is that you can actually change them so that they're not wireframe but shaded in. And there's different reasons why you might want to see the polygon wireframe versus the shading flat colors, which kind of make it look not 2D. And modeling assist is actually probably pretty useful. And we'll get into more of that later in the week. So now I don't need the teapot. I haven't even really changed its name. It's over here. There's a number of things you could do. You could turn off its visibility by hitting the eyeball, but I don't really need it, so I can delete it just by hitting the delete key. Or if you have an object in a scene, if you right-click on an object with the mouse, it should bring up a quad menu. In this case, one of the options I should have here, move, rotate, scale, etc. I was hoping there'd be a delete version, but there's not. So I'm just going to go ahead and press the delete key. There we go. Now I've got my base. Of course, my snowperson should have a base, a middle, and a head. And before I go any further, I want to talk about moving the object. So to move this object within its scene, there is controls at the top, and they're in a line, in a row. This is move. This is select and rotate, and this is scale. Now the shortcut keys line up with home row on a keyboard, W, E, and R. So when you're working with your hand on the keyboard, if you touch W in 3ds Max, You'll notice it highlights that. E brings up this one, and R brings up that one. When you actually have an object selected and you touch W, E, and R, what they call the widget changes. So W for move, E for rotate, R for scale. I know, I would want R to be rotate as well, but somebody else came up with this long before you and me. So with W as the active one, I can click on just one of these colors, such as red or green or even blue, and you'll see as I move it in the main viewport, the change is reflected in the other viewports as well, which is really handy for lining up your work in 3D space. Now, I could try to create another sphere and line it up on top. That's one way to do this. I could go back to sphere, create another one, and then use the move tool to line it up. That's one way you could try to do this. But as you can see here, now I've got myself challenged by lining these things up in 3D space. It's a little bit awkward. It's kind of wonky. So I'm going to delete that, and I'll show you what I think is a better way. With the first object selected, I can create a copy a couple different ways. You can right-click and select an object that says clone. That would create a duplicate of it. Or, and this is my preferred method, is I use the move tool and I hold down the shift key. By holding shift and dragging up, it actually changes it so you can make this a copy, an instance, or a reference. And we'll talk about the difference between these three options tomorrow. But for now, let's just make it a copy and click on. Before I click on OK, I'm going to change this so it's SP-body instead of base. Or maybe middle, because a different letter might make sense. So there's my middle. Spelled wrong, but as long as we can identify what it is, that's what it is. So going back now to the R key for scaling, if I put myself right in the middle, I can scale this down. Now, I purposely left an overlap, and if you look in the other viewports, by using the move tool, I've got a very well-aligned middle as well. And then we just simply need to repeat the process to make the head. I'm going to start with the middle, holding shift, and as I drag it up, I'm going to leave some overlap, let go, and it'll be snowperson-head. Now, as I name each of these, it makes it much easier when I look over here in my Scene Explorer to see the names of things. This is a habit I want you to establish now because it's going to be important when you get into the Unreal Game Engine to not just create things and leave them with default names, but to have them categorized. Now I can change the properties of this a couple different ways. I've been showing you how to use the R key for scaling, which I can do, but I can also expose the properties here on an object by clicking on another button next to the Create panel. So I'm going to move my head over there to really highlight what I'm going to do. I'm going to move from the plus button here over to what looks like kind of a bent line. This is called the Modify panel. And when I click on it, it exposes the attributes here. So I can change the properties here by clicking and scrolling down, and I can change the size. So I've now set up 3 different objects. That's a basic snow person, and I'm thinking everybody should be able to get that far today. And then time available, continue to create things like 2 eyes for the buttons, making sure to name them. A nose could be made from a cone. I'll show you that in a minute. Multiple spheres for chunks of coal for a mouth and some buttons down it. And time available, add a cylinder for an arm. And basically make a snow person. What you're going to turn in needs to show me that you've got some geometry put together. You can maximize this viewport I've got in the lower right-hand corner here by clicking in this button I'm highlighting here, just to maximize the single viewport. And in the intro, it shows you if you use the middle mouse button, you can kind of do things like scroll around. You can basically set up a scene where I can see that you've named your objects and you've got them in your scene. I'm going to toggle over for a minute to our Google Classroom to show you what a sample submission looks like. This would be a screenshot that shows a snow person. This one's got some extra modifiers on it. Don't worry about that. For example, the sphere at the base has got what we call a noise modifier. Again, I'll cover that tomorrow because I don't think we'll have time to get it all in today. And we will save this to your H drive. So tomorrow, we're regardless of what machine you grab, you'll be able to continue your work here. So that's just kind of a speed run of how to do this, to get going with it, and what I'm looking for you to get turned in. There is this is pointing out that maximize button that I talked about, and this is emphasizing to start the English version of it. And here's the 1 minute movies that are highlighted that I think would make the most difference. And I get that the 1 minute movie is not a very good name for it. Just to show you what some students have been getting done in earlier sessions. We've got a couple of them here. Actually, probably more than this now. If I went back and did a refresh on this, I might see more than 2. I'm hoping. There we go. 12 people have turned it in. So this one's really far along. They've got the 3 spheres. They've got a piece of wood basically thrown through the middle, brown to make the arms. And then they've made a combination to make a hat. So this should be an interesting activity. I'm not grading you on the artistic effort here. I'm looking for you to apply the concepts. And really, I'd like to see a list here indicating what the names are of the elements in the scene, so that if somebody else was going to do it, that's going to be something that we're going to be using throughout. Okay, and this is formative. I want everyone to understand. So in this case, somebody gave me a okay, so please turn in an image. And this is for everyone's benefit, because by seeing some examples of what's gotten turned in, people that watch this later will have an opportunity to avoid those same mistakes. This is great. I see a snow person. I see them named. This one's perfect. Okay. I don't comment on everyone's post every time. I just happen to be doing this as part of the video so that people get an idea what's going on. Let's see how this one looks. So same thing here, just for consistency. All right, I'm going to stop this video now. I'm going to post this one as well up to YouTube and in a playlist. This will be more of a speed run on just doing some modeling and what I'm looking for at the end of day 1.